Hello, I'm Rich Fedorchak. I'd like to welcome you here to my art studio in the Seven Stars Art Center in Sharon, Vermont. This is where I do most of my work. I am not a academically trained artist. In fact, I spent 35 years of my life working as a registered nurse, mainly in pediatric intensive care and pediatric oncology. In fact, I worked at Dartmouth-Hitchcock for 23 years of those 35 years when I moved to this area in 1990. So how did I become an artist? Well, it was kind of a circuitous route to making art. In fact, early on, when I was in college, I was more interested in music and had became a founding member of a jug band doing bluegrass and blues. And we are still playing, actually, not as often as we used to in the old days, but we'll actually be playing. If you find yourselves in Brooklyn, New York, on November 9th, the band will be playing at the Brooklyn Folk Festival. But back to the art. I started making art. I sort of can narrow it down to the year 1974. I only say that because some of the work that I made then I still have. And I really got interested in art because of the people I was living with. After college, roamed around a bit, lived in Boston for a while. But when I came back to New Jersey, which is where I'm originally from, and moved into a two-story house with a bunch of people who went to the same college that I did. And every one of them were art majors, and it was a very creative household, so much so that it was contagious to me. And a chance discovery of the major American artist Joseph Cornell really sparked my interest in making art, because I didn't think I had technical skills to be an artist. I didn't know how to paint or draw. But when I saw the work of Cornell, who was also a self-taught artist, who was never academically trained, but who was making these beautiful box constructions with objects that he had found, and also collage. So I started working in those mediums myself, and I began in those early 70s a very long autodidactic study of modern art, to the point where I have something like, the last time I counted, over 400 art books. So my influences were basically through those art books, and going to exhibits. I was living very close to New York City all during the 70s, and spent a lot of time in the museums and galleries in New York. And it just became like a virus that spread for me, a happy virus. So at any rate, I'm here in my studio, and I'd like to just show you some things that are on the walls. I'm also a collector of art, and I love owning other people's art, which I decorate in my home and also here in the studio. But I'd also like to show you kind of some of the materials that I use to make my art. So I will kind of go around the room and show you some of the various little tchotchkes that I have managed to acquire over many trips to antique shows and flea markets and things like that, and used book stores and so forth, to be able to work in collage and assemblage. So I may as well start right here. This is a collage / assemblage that I made some years ago when I found this old weathered frame, and it is a homage to the artist Joseph Cornell. and I used a lot of the tropes that he used in his work to make this. So it's basically a portrait of him. We'll zoom in a little bit on this, and you'll get a sense a little bit for this particular piece. And here are some more tchotchkes, little groupings of things that I stick inside this box. It's not a finished piece per se. I just enjoy having them in this little container. This one's very humorous. It's these porcelain figures. They're sitting on a toilet. Made in Japan, actually. So I'd like to share with you some of my recent work and talk a little bit about my process. When I'm working in collage, not exclusively, but a lot of times I like to do things in series. And I mean sometimes these pieces in an individual series, there may be years between them. But I've been working on a new project that I'm calling the Nocturnes, and they'll be featured at my show at Ava. And this is one of them. It's called Mirror, Mirror in the Night. And I will explain how I came to this particular series in a moment. So about a year ago, I started to take nighttime photos of the moon, especially when it's full, in various locations, but mostly just on my front porch, which faces due south. And after a while, I realized that these might make really nice backgrounds for collages. So that's what brought on this series called The Nocturnes. And I think I'm going to continue working on this particular series for quite a while. But let me just show you, here's a perfect example of a photograph that I took. And I'm going to add just 2 elements to this because I think that's all it needs. And I'm about to assemble this particular piece. So for this piece, as I said, I'm just going to use 2 elements. So the first one is actually, in recent years, they have these wonderful glitter papers nowadays, and I love shiny objects like an old crow. So I am going to have this little shiny ray of light coming down, and then this was from some advertisement of some sort, but I just loved the beauty of this. This is a dancer, and it will be something like this. And that's all I think this piece needs. So thank you for spending some time with me in my studio, and I hope you enjoy the exhibit.
Hello, this is James Secor in Montpelier, Vermont, and welcome to my Ava Artist Studio Tour. My studio's in my house. I have 2 kids, 2 cats, a partner. I also work from home, so there's also my giant desk with 2 monitors and computer always looking at me. I usually work in the evenings after kids go to bed. I don't think I need that much. I have a little piece of glass that I use to mix paint on. I like to mix my own color. I tend not to use paint right out of a tube. But I usually start with a sketch from life, very occasionally a picture, photo. But yeah, I go from that and I just start adding layers of color and texture. And as I add paint, it can either go more toward realism or more toward abstraction. Just take ideas from what is already there and build on them. Color fascinates me. It's always interesting to see how colors play off each other. And sometimes, like, if you use complementary colors, it's really jarring, or it can be. You can also create sort of a mood. The mood of the painting is, color. I think I might move the overall color toward orange or toward something that unifies the painting, or make it all disjointed and lots of just sort of color events that seem sporadic. I don't know how to say how I choose the next color, but in applying this darker green color here, I don't know. It's usually like, sometimes it's just whatever color is on hand, like what's already out, or I have this tub of used paint, or like leftover from the previous session. I'll go to that sometimes. But yeah, it's like, do I want to make this color warmer, cooler? How dark or light should it be? All those choices come into play. Sometimes it takes a lot of looking at a painting to realize, like, what's the next move. I do a lot of townscapes or scenes with buildings or people sometimes, because I think compositions can be made of almost anything, and I really like that. I enjoy making them sort of, maybe not purposefully, from things that are maybe less pretty than other scenes, but I like including things like power lines or street signs, or, I don't know, trash cans. Just things, all that stuff is there. And so it's fun. It's also like part of living in Vermont is like, it's kind of a touristy place where people come to see the beautiful views. And so my purpose is not to point out like, oh, Vermont is also ugly, because that's not what it's all about for me. It's like kind of to point out that, oh, this is also beautiful. If you can imagine a painting that might be more like traditional Vermont beauty, if you actually went to that place, there probably would be power lines, and there would be all sorts of stuff that isn't in the painting that we would imagine. Almost anywhere you are, there's probably a power line. Painting is kind of an end in and of itself. Like, my first goal might be to make beautiful paintings and to enjoy the process of painting, rather than show the world the beauty in a telephone pole. And maybe that's just like a byproduct. I want to create something that speaks to me in a way, that has balance and unity. Like, it looks good when I look at it. Is the color strong? Are all of the elements in the painting strong? Is there anywhere in the painting that feels like weaker than anywhere else? Is something too bold, or too, like, falling back too much? To me, that means that it feels purposeful, that I haven't left anything to chance, even though it's all made in a way by chance. But yeah, everything has been thought about, I guess. So it feels whole, feels like I enjoy looking at it, and things feel resolved. Every little section feels resolved.
So I've always been a collector of objects ever since I was a little tyke. Collected magnets and anything that kind of interested me. Rocks and minerals that glow under ultraviolet light, and it kind of carried over into my adolescence. And it's when I discovered the work of Joseph Cornell that really got me going. I was fascinated by his trips into New York City from Flushing, Queens, and his exploration and adventures, and his gathering of old materials from old New York and other places around the world. And then assembling them together into a kind of a timeless box. Very, very infatuated by that whole process. And I have a similar process, collecting, gathering pieces that kind of resonate with certain memories or dreams that I might have had, and then the arrangement of those pieces and how they could speak to each other, resonate again with each other, is when I know the work is working for me. So this is where I work, in this room. It's crowded, and I keep my tools on the floor and have boxes of clamps and glues and so forth. But the work really starts with the treasure hunt and continues with the arrangement of objects that in many ways can be disparate, but when they're put together, tell a story. It may not be apparent to everyone what the story is, but it is to me. And I'm hoping that it evokes a sense or a feeling of mystery, surrealism, wonder, and immersion. So I've got a couple of large tables in my workshop, and I'll set things out and kind of focus in on something which is semi-framed, if you will. And this, for instance, can be on my tabletop for weeks or even months. This piece, for instance, is nowhere near complete. I'll add some 19th century marbleized paper in to create a more of a floating effect of these pieces and divert the eye to some color. And hopefully these objects will make more sense once they're saturated with color around them. But I'll leave these, like I said, for sometimes months and come back and move things around, add, subtract, cannibalize, and eventually, at some point, the piece will speak to me and I'm done. I was very lucky to befriend Farjan Bogosian, who is a professor of art at Dartmouth College, and he became my mentor, and I miss him a great deal. He always said to me, you've got the material, you've got so much material, so much collecting, and he was right. The material is colorful and engaging, and for a while it was hard to use anything in my pieces because the objects themselves were so sort of attractive on their own. But he made it a lot easier for me, and here I am. Here's an homage to Bogosian. Also includes two of my cast of characters, the Smith brothers, made famous by their cough drop business. Another cabinet of materials. Sometimes the cabinets themselves are constructions but right now I primarily use them to store materials to work with. So again, the process of finding, looking, exploring, and then assembling and having objects talk to each other and resonate is very soothing. And as you can see, I have no dearth of material. Cornell actually used to label his shelves in a similar way, but I'm not sure he had as much trouble finding things on his shelves as I do. I gotta, if I ever get concerned that the flea market doesn't have what I'm looking for, or there isn't that kind of rush, I just can come in here and start opening up boxes, and I find stuff that I never even knew I had. So it's Christmas and all over again.